Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the SASB metrics that essentially act as a stock exchange's referee whistle, making sure the game is fair for every single investor out there. I am so thrilled you're here. We're going to look under the hood at the exact standards used by security and commodity exchanges to keep capital markets completely transparent and running smoothly.
So let's kick things off with a pretty crucial question. How do we actually quantify transparency and efficiency in a marketplace that is quite literally moving at the speed of light? Because, it's one thing to just say a market is fair, but according to the SASB industry standards, exchanges have a very strict responsibility to guarantee equal access for all participants. And honestly, if they drop the ball on this, they're looking at massive litigation, heavy regulatory penalties, and completely wrecked reputations. So how do they actually track this stuff?
Well, here is our agenda for today. First, the pulse of the market. 2, tracking halts and pauses. 3, measuring automated trading. 4, controlling information flow. 5, the push for ESG. And finally, 6, why transparency matters. Let's get right into it.
Okay, Section 1. The pulse of the market, the exchange as a referee. Moving right along to Section 2, tracking halts and pauses, stopping the clock.
Now, what is really fascinating about our first quantitative metric here is how it measures exactly when and why that referee blows the whistle to stop trading. And we really need to distinguish between a halt and a pause. A trading halt is a temporary suspension, usually triggered because the market just needs a minute to digest major new information, maybe a huge corporate restructuring or some new regulatory directive. But on the flip side, a trading pause, that's a super brief timeout, sometimes literally just a few minutes, specifically designed to cool down extreme erratic volatility. It basically prevents panic and lets everyone catch their breath.
Think of this like a public scorecard. Exchanges are required to report the exact number of these halts and pauses, plus their average duration in minutes. It's absolutely crucial because, think about it, if an exchange starts showing a disproportionately high number of pauses, that's a massive red flag. It might signal an underlying issue with market stability that we as investors really need to know about.
All right, on to Section 3, measuring automated trading algorithms at work. So, building on that idea of stability, we have to talk about the invisible players in the market. A massive chunk of today's trading volume isn't even human anymore. It's high-frequency, pre-programmed algorithms. We are talking about automated systems firing off orders in fractions of a microsecond. Exchanges actually have to disclose the percentage of total trades generated by these machines. And this is a big deal because sure, algorithms provide great liquidity, but they also introduce crazy latency risks, the threat of flash crashes, and even the risk of data centers becoming stranded assets if the need for hyperspeed suddenly drops off.
So how do we actually measure that? Well, exchanges use a very specific formula. You just take the total volume of trades executed, meaning bought, sold, and sold short by an automated algorithm, and divide that by the total volume of all trades. Simple, right? And this applies whether the trades are happening on a public exchange or in private venues like dark pools. It gives us a really clear, hard percentage of just how machine-dominated the market actually is.
Let's pivot over to Section 4, controlling information flow, the rulebook.
Okay, so moving from the hard math to the qualitative side of things, how do we stop insiders from getting an unfair head start? Well, exchanges enforce a strict alert policy governing exactly when and how sensitive corporate developments go public. We're talking about triggers like major shifts in financial health, massive restructurings or mergers, significant product news, key management shakeups, or major legal drama. Basically, anything that could massively swing a stock's price overnight.
And when one of those triggers gets hit, the exchange doesn't just wing it. They follow very deliberate steps. First, they lock down the timing of the release, often pushing it outside active market hours so they don't spark absolute chaos. Second, they specify exactly which wire services and news agencies get notified. And finally, they execute precise alert mechanisms, like an official website post, a press release, or even social media. It's this exact standardized process that kills off unfair information asymmetries.
Which brings us to Section 5, the push for ESG, shaping corporate responsibility.
Building on all this transparency, exchanges also push companies toward broader societal responsibility, and they essentially have two distinct routes for their ESG, or environmental, social, and governance policies. They can use rules-based policies, where a listed company literally has to meet specific, hard criteria just to stay listed, or they can use disclosure-based policies. With these, a company doesn't necessarily have to hit a specific target, but they absolutely must put their data out there publicly so investors can make their own informed decisions.
And when exchanges implement these policies, they're typically looking at three main areas. For environmental, it's things like greenhouse gas emissions, energy efficiency, and biodiversity. For social, we're looking at human rights, labor standards in the supply chain, and worker safety. And for governance, it's all about board independence and strong ethics codes. By demanding companies report on these specific elements, the exchange acts as a huge catalyst for better corporate behavior.
Finally, Section 6, Why Transparency Matters, Protecting the Investor.
So, why does all of this actually matter to you? All these halt durations, algorithm percentages, alert triggers, and ESG policies. Well, the bottom line is this. By sticking to these rigorous SASB industry standards, exchanges make sure the average investor isn't just left entirely in the dark. It creates a level playing field. Consistent disclosure of risks and opportunities preserves true market integrity and protects your shareholder value from fraud, manipulation, and the kind of extreme asymmetry that only benefits a privileged few.
I really want to leave you with this thought to chew on. As technology just keeps evolving at a breakneck pace, with algorithms getting faster and data flying globally in an instant, how on earth will these fundamental rules of market fairness adapt to protect the next generation of investors? It's an ongoing puzzle for sure, but understanding these exact metrics is your first big step to seeing the market clearly. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep asking the right questions.